Now we're rethinking how the modern data stack worked and what the use cases where it was relevant for. Um, how can we reimagine those same use cases in the world of AI? And some of the pieces that we had in the modern data stack just don't make sense.
Welcome to It's About Data, episode 71. We're joined by Amit Sharma, CEO of CData Software. Amit, welcome. You're the CEO and founder of CData, and I've known about you guys for years. I feel like you're a major data company that not everyone has heard of. So, actually, what I want to talk about today is collapsing. And you kind of we in some of our preliminary notes we got, you wanted to talk a bit about collapsing and specifically collapsing the modern data stack. And so tell us a bit about that and tell us where you guys are coming from with respect to this problem.
First of all, thanks for having me, Matt. Nice to see you, Tony. So let's talk about modern data stack. So before we do that, I'd like to just set the stage of what CData is about these days, and then we'll go back and talk about the modern data stack a little. So these days, we see ourselves as that data layer between AI and enterprise data. Uh, so, so when you think about what AI needs to operate on, we all have had the chat experience with Chat GPT, and as a consumer, you want similar sort of engagement with your enterprise data and to be able to work on it, right? So that's how we have positioned ourselves. There are many use cases in how you operate in a company to be able to utilize enterprise data. But let's talk about the modern data stack and how it came into being. So one of the use cases is this solving the analytical problem, which is
Mm-hmm.
very classical problem, has been around for a very long time. You extract the data from various systems. These are transactional systems. Put them in a data warehouse, and then you process it so that you can do analytical reporting and decision
Yes.
making and BI use cases and other use cases, right? And the modern data stack came out with the idea, like traditionally this was done by like one or two products, and the modern data stack came out. Wait a minute, there's a lot of complexity in this. We can split this problem into multiple pieces. Like, so you had the cloud data warehouses like Databricks and Snowflake, and you had companies like that can do transformation on the other side, and they had companies that would do reverse ETL. They would solve various pieces of this puzzle of the core use case of doing BI and analytics and across different segments. Well, what happened is over a period of time, like what most people realized, there was too much for customers to actually go and pick and choose the best in class for every little piece. And it was like, yes, you
Yeah.
could put this together. And it kind of worked with like if you looked at like really big pieces of the technology, it worked. Like you can have a company like us or Fivetran or somebody else who's doing ETL layer, that's fine. But then if you keep componentizing every little part of the problem and you end up with like I have these 10, 15 vendors that I need to figure out. And yes, they can interoperate in some regard, but not. And we left all of this problem into the customer. And our view is like that definitely is collapsing. So one reason it was collapsing is just because it was onerous to use,
Yes.
completely independent of AI.
Yeah.
um, AI sort of put fuel on that fire. Like now we are rethinking about. So this is the other segue into the AI discussion. But now we're rethinking how the modern data stack worked and what the use cases where it was relevant for. Um, how can we reimagine those same use cases in the world of AI? And some of the pieces that we had in the modern data stack just don't make sense.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I mean, go ahead, Tony.
yeah, well, put it this way. Let's take this step back, Amit, which is basically
Yeah.
what is it that you guys are doing to collapse the modern data stack? I mean, as far as I can see, you guys are part of the problem. Tell me why you're
Yeah.
not.
Correct. So what we're doing is like, so AI use cases, we have live connectivity. So one thing is like, we will talk about this quite a bit, is the live versus replicated data connectivity. What I mean by
Mm-hmm.
that is for some use cases, you want to build pipelines and move data from wherever it resides into a data warehouses. But for many other use cases, when you're doing an analysis, like I'll take an example, like, and we run these use cases in our company all the time. Like, let's say a sales rep has to figure out like how to prep for their next call with the customer. They want to go through every existing thing that we know about this customer. Are there any open tickets? What were the past conversation? Can I get a summary of them? And how do I proceed? You don't really need to build a pipeline to solve that problem. Like what we were doing before when we had these wonderful pieces of technology, everything looked like a pipeline problem. Let's build a data pipeline, we will feed it, and somebody's going to analyze and go. Our approach is now is like for some use cases, you do want to build a pipeline. So if you're going to create a 10K and you are doing financial reporting, you want to cleanse that data, build a data pipeline. But the use case I just described, like an an AE wants to get on a call and understand what type of conversation to have with the customer, you do not need a data pipeline. What you need is you need a connectivity directly from the AI system that can help you summarize. Like you can't go and humanly understand the 10 calls that can help you summarize the call data and give you the signal from that noise and do it in real time so that you are assured. Like imagine this, like the last call that we had with the customer, maybe they said like, oh, we're going to put this in procurement, and we had this AE who was thinking, I need to give this 20% discount to win the deal. That wouldn't be a good outcome. Like they need to be able to see that what that last call up to the minute was before they get on this discussion with the customer. And what we are helping solve for is we bring this connectivity directly into the AI systems in real time without having to build a pipeline and move the data into like, which was the, and when I say this, some people come and challenge me like, what do you mean this whole notion of pipeline is dead? I said, no, it is not dead. It's absolutely very important, right? Like, but depending on use cases, there are many use cases where you don't need that overhead and you could solve it in a different approach, and we offer that different approach.
So this is something we've been talking a lot about with a lot of our guests, which is how do you create a consistent interpretation of data? And people have a lot of answers to this question. And so what's the answer for CData? And is CData focused on that, or is that something you partner with other companies for, the actual interpretation of the data?
We absolutely are. So like we think of what CData does in terms of three C's: is connectivity, context, and control. And control is obviously the governance and security piece. We don't talk about it, but like you have to imagine, like when we're talking about these data systems and enterprise data, you have to make sure there is security and governance. But let's go to the context problem. It's not enough to have the data. You need to have the context of how the data is interconnected. So I'll go back to the same, we'll keep using the same use case we were talking about. Like go back to that AE, he might be benefit from data from 5 different systems. So obviously from Salesforce, where the CRM data, like you might have information about the customer, what code we have put in front of them, what product they're interested in, etc. But you might be interested in data from Gong, which has recorded all the call activity. You might also be interested in data from a ticketing system, be it ServiceNow or Jira, whatever is being used in enterprise. If there are tickets or requests that are relevant to this customer that have been open. So when we think about like a context, we think about like how is this data interconnected? How can we define the relationships with different these pieces? So when this AE goes and asks the question, they get the right response. And they're not triaging through thousands of tickets. They said, like, I want to know everything about this customer. And if the system of record is already like we build interconnections on top of this live data, saying this is how you go from Salesforce to Jira to Gong, and this is how you can traverse the relationship across these various systems to get everything you want to know about the customer. That's how we think about context and bringing that into the AI data.
Right. I mean, basically, where you really built your name is that you know all that ugly stuff that sits underneath the manhole. And I use that manhole not in a sexist standpoint, from the standpoint of like you're in a New York street and underneath that manhole, oh my God, what gas lines do you have? Oh my God, this dates from like the 19th century. You have. It seems like really that your core, your family jewels there are knowing that stuff. And so what that to me, and this is where Matt was talking about partnerships, it would seem to be very logical that then you would basically be, it would be logical for you to basically be, integrated in or plugged into a catalog, which would then elevate it to a higher level that shows to the business user, what is this piece of information? What is this entity? What does it mean?
Yeah, absolutely. So we are definitely have partnerships with vendors. Like if you think about the traditional catalogs, like we definitely have partnership with vendors like Calibra, Lation, and so like where you can see all the pieces of data. For modern use cases, we are also have very strong partnership with vendors like Microsoft in their Copilot Studio and Anthropic, right? Like so,
Hmm.
one of our biggest partnership obviously is with Anthropic, where when you think about like how users are finding this, if you can be connected right in Claude, and we are a partner there, and that facilitates that. So any organization that buys the Connect AI product, they can hook it into Claude through our partnership with Anthropic, and now you can ask these questions directly in Anthropic. So the partnerships are important
Hmm.
because those front end systems where you're accessing the data, like actually, like we are invisible. Like I think the manhole example is a very good one, Tony, right? Like because we're not visible to the customer, we're just the pipeline behind the scenes. What visible to the customer is the chatbot. Like they are
Hmm.
talking about this conversation in Claude or the Anthropic UI. They're not even looking how the plumbing is done and how the data flows and how it comes to them. They're seeing it brought to them in the environment they're used to working. One step ahead of that is like agentic use cases. So Claude would be a conversational AI use case. Agentic use cases is like we have partnership with Databricks and Microsoft, as I had mentioned, with AgentBricks. So if somebody wants to build an agent in the Databricks platform, and this is where the two we were talking about the modern data stack and like two use cases converge. Maybe some of the data is in Databricks and has already gone through the pipeline flow that we talked about, but some hasn't. The agentic nature of people building agents is that they need to operate on both. Some has been historical data that they can get from Databricks and has been properly curated and analyzed that agents can work on, but some might be real-time data that need to go and cross-check before they come up with a conclusion. And we're partnering with companies like AgentBricks, and in that case the front end is Databricks, and we are again in the
Hmm.
back end just doing the plumbing.
Got it. Okay, so I'm going to challenge you on something here, which is in the AI coding world, one of the hardest problems right now is identifying security problems, identifying bugs, and fixing them. The same thing applies in data for anyone who's been a data engineer for a long time, right? It's really hard to uncover the data problems and then fix them. So, what's the strategy? How do you find out when Claude has given you an incorrect answer because there's some misinterpretation of data? How do you surface those problems? And
Mm.
then how do you fix those in the long term over time?
Excellent question, and I think the answer to that is, Matt, like is partly was in your question. Like the
Hmm.
first part of the problem is uncovering that. Like what
Yeah.
most people don't realize is like if I don't even know what the problem was, I will have no hope of actually fixing it. So one of the
Yeah.
foundational aspects of Connect AI that we think is we build into the product this notion of observability.
Hmm.
So any interaction that happens with an agent can be audited and observed. So you can go back and say, like, okay, we'll take the same example I've been using, right? Like, if our IT team wanted to go back, and by the way, we have the system up and running in CData, and we're excited about like how it's been utilized, right? If the IT team wants to go back and look at what the conversation that happened with an AE looked like, we can go exactly what was the question that the LLM asked, what was the response that was given in real time, and were we satisfied with it or not. And so, like, first step is being able to observe and audit these interactions. And once we can do that, you can find the places where it was a mess. Like maybe the AI created the wrong query when it went into, and now you can go and update. And there are various steps of how you can fix that problem. You can add skills into AI that teaches it how to get the right results and not go in a wrong path. So you can attack the problem from the AI side, and then we have data modeling tools on Connect AI side where you can also attack the problem. So sometimes what happens is these AI agents are super smart, but if you introduce a lot of tools and a lot of context in this, like they can lose information
Hmm.
and hallucinate a little bit. So what the way you can attack the problem on our side is you can create a narrower window for your AI interactions into data, and you say like, I'm going to give you this smaller window of curated set of data and not everything in the world, so you don't get confused by it. But I think the first step is actually uncovering what we're seeing our customers do. They're excited about this technology. they're using it. And again, like if you're trying to build a 10K, you wouldn't use this technology. But if they're excited about like their people being able to have data on their fingertips in real time and be able to use it for use cases like I talked about. So they're adopting it very quickly. But at the same time, like we have this observability layer where they can come back and correct problems if they see any.
Anyway, I mean, I very much appreciate you taking the time here. This is really the beginning of a longer discussion. But I think what's kind of interesting here is that, of course, well, it's like the more things change, the fact is there's still all this, this ugly plumbing underneath. No matter what we do, data is going to be, it's going to be very, not only distributed, but it's going to be accessed in so many different ways. There needs to be an intelligence layer underneath that really understands how we get to that data. And the fact is, where we, where we the front end, of course, as you're saying just now, it might be changing from the BI tool to say, Cursor or Anthropic or Claude or something like that. Really interesting stuff. But anyway, very much appreciate you joining with us today. Good talking.
Thank you, Tony. Nice
Talk
being
to you
here,
later.
Matt.